Hello there, this is Tim Campos from ArtCenter College of Design. I am the Director of Recruitment Programs and Outreach and Admissions. I'm here with you today for another session of our Q&A to talk about our reopening plan for the fall. And with me today is our Provost and alumna, Karen Hofmann. And so if you give me just a moment, I'll bring Karen on.
Hi, Tim. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Good. Good to see everyone. Well, see you specifically.
Yeah. So thank you for being with me today, this week. Last week, we spoke to our Vice President for Campus Planning and Facilities, Roland Hammer, and he talked to us about some of the planning they have going on regarding the opening for fall. And this week, I'd like to chat with you about academics and the curriculum and kind of what students can expect. And I know we have a variety of options that our students are coming into, whether they're returning students or new incoming students. And so I thought we could start things off by maybe just describing what are some of those options and what can students experience and expect in terms of those who might choose to join us on campus, those who might choose the hybrid option, or those who are looking at studying remotely for the fall term.
Sure. And if you don't mind, Tim, before we get started, I do want to wish everybody health and happiness right now as much as possible. I think, it's been a heck of a year, and I just want to acknowledge the ArtCenter community for all of the amazing work the students are doing, the incredible pivoting the faculty are doing, and the support the staff are giving to make this all happen. It happens to be the end of summer term, week 14, so we're in finals right now. Yep, and we've got graduation on Saturday, so it's a very special week, and the second time that we've done this all online. So we are going into the fall with 4 different options. For those of you that were registered for the summer term, you know that all of our humanities and sciences classes remained online, and the majority of our studio classes remained online as well. Same kind of thing for fall. So this fall, all of the humanities and sciences continue to do online coursework. And then we have 3 other options for our studio courses. First is the online with campus facilities. So this means that you have courses you're registered in. You have to be present here in Pasadena to be able to go to the shops, go to the labs. It's courses that may have you come to campus on specific times. It totally varies on what kinds of classes we're offering and when you will come to campus to convene. Most of the work, though, the critiques and the work done, the collaboration will be done online, but you will come to campus specifically to make something or to produce something. Or for a specific lecture. And we're also going to be leveraging our outdoor spaces as well. And as you know, we've got some really great outdoor spaces.
That we do.
Yep, we do. The second one is because we do have such a reliance on making in our studio work. And, this is, coming from a making background, an industrial design background, I know how important that is as part of the process of learning. So if you can't really have access to the shops, if you can't have access to the print labs and such, what we're providing is a service bureau approach. So we have those staff members on campus. You will be able to send files in. Let's say you need to have something laser cut or something that's 3D printed. Those files can be sent in, and then there'll be a procedure for how you can come pick those products up or those printouts up. And that will be done through the classes that you're registered in. So your faculty will lead you through that process once you guys convene this fall. The other one that we're offering up is we're calling it the hybrid with campus access. So this is, again, for those that are in the area that definitely need to have some kind of convening on campus. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be spending time making there, although we will want to take advantage of those resources and those facilities. But again, majority of it will be online. It might mean that you might be in a class for a period of time on campus, and you have classmates who are actually online. So we're calling it both in person and online. So that's our hybrids. And by the way, for the Service Bureau approach, we also are leveraging our network of alumni and industry networks where around the world, actually. So if you are not in Pasadena and you still want to use the Service Bureau approach, we are trying to identify local resources. We also are trying to support the idea of sending printouts if we need to. We're just being really flexible, and that's the point here. Is we're delivering the ArtCenter experience with as much flexibility, both in the classroom and the overall experience.
Great. I just want to also put a reminder out there for anyone tuning in. If you have questions for Karen, please ask away. We have questions that we're asking. I have questions that I'm asking Karen, but if you have questions, we'd love to hear your questions as regards to our reopening plan and the various options that Karen just outlined. So please send those questions in, and I'll get to those in just a bit. In terms of the remote learning, for those who are choosing remote learning, or maybe for some of our students who have yet to decide which path they want to embark on this fall, just so we're clear, so everybody knows, no matter across the disciplines, across the academic departments, all departments have an online, fully online remote option if students were to choose.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is complete. One of the things that you heard from Roland on his Instagram Live last week, and you are going to hear from our amazing colleague, Cynthia Quinton, next week to talk about safety and procedures and protocols. I mean, we're working around the clock on making sure that whatever we do, we provide the safe access to campus. However, we also know that we have many students who, for various reasons, cannot make it into Pasadena. They cannot be here this coming term. Some of them are international and are not able to come back into the country. And so we are providing experiences for multiple time zones. Right. It doesn't matter where you are, you can participate in these classes. I will say that the advantage that we have at ArtCenter is we have a summer term. So many of the classes that we're offering in the fall, the faculty have gone through this already. They continually improve how that classroom experience will work for students who are, in California, in the LA area, in Pasadena, but also students that might be in New York or Miami, students that might be, in Brazil or in Asia. I think there was one class that we've had this summer. There was 5 different time zones in one class. But we made it work, and that's the global experience of ArtCenter. We're just doing it all online at this moment.
And with that, as you just mentioned, given the fact that we're just in week 14 finishing summer term, faculty, the departments have gone through it, and then of course we had to pick up and shift in the mid-March when everyone to finish the spring term. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about that in terms of first time, second time, now third time going into it. And so I'm sure there's many things that we've learned, things that we have continued to innovate, but maybe we can focus a bit on what have been some of those either not only learning outcomes, but things that we've looked at, that we've identified. Hey, these are things that we tried it this way, but we realized it's gonna work out better this way. Or hey, we tried it this way, we weren't too sure about it, but it actually worked really well for us, and we're gonna continue doing that.
Yeah, I think. Well, let me talk a little bit about what we've been through since March. So many of you were part of the spring term where we had about half the term that was in person. We took a week to help all of our faculty get online. I think we had 600 classes that went online, and I will say we have an amazing online education team led by Dr. Rosemary Piccioni, and they collaborate with our IT, media services, all the department chairs, all the faculty. I could go on and on. It has been, just numerous. Every department has had input into making the experience better and better. The pivot in spring was crazy. We did it. We were able to, I think, deliver some really great work. It was a great pilot for us to understand where the limitations were, what we had to improve. Those were implemented this summer. This summer, one of the things that we definitely have realized is just how much more we need as far as protocols in the classroom. And I'll talk a little bit more about this, but, we're all now in this in this digital classroom. And there's some great things about that, but there's also ways in which we need to improve how we teach. Zoom fatigue was real across the board. We realized we needed to make sure that we were taking breaks, that we were just delivering a 5-hour studio in a different way. A lot of what we're trying to build now is asynchronous content, so that the work that you can do as a student is obviously part of, you need to be present for critiques and for lectures and such, but we're trying to make it so that you can do more of the work on your own time frame offline with recorded content. And so those are some of the things that we're improving and we're continuing to build. We're understanding that there's other software that we're starting to experiment with, that we're implementing that's complementary to Zoom. We're very fortunate that the online education team discovered Yuja. It's a platform that works seamlessly with Zoom and .ed and all the other things that can be delivered around the world. So it's a really robust platform. And so a lot of the faculty are getting trained on that as well. We've made improvements to the .ed platform as well, because we're forced to do this at a much a faster scale to make these improvements. And then we finally have done some really interesting projects where we are creating a whole photo library. So for all the drawing and painting classes that you all have been in or are planning to be, what we've been doing with our models and props team, with our faculty who teach those classes, and with our facilities and video teams, is we've been safely going into the classrooms. The models arrive and the faculty are art directing them, and we're capturing very high quality imagery of all the poses. So so those that were enrolled this summer, you might have experienced that, but it's capturing the lighting and the positions and all the different poses that you need to have in a live drawing session. Now we're bringing that online. And so the library, I think we have about 30 models that have been captured, and we're going to do another 30 in the term ahead. So that's exciting. And we are very fortunate to have such great networks with the industry. One of our trustees, Michael Warsaw, is head of design at Steelcase, and they have a technology called Bluescape. And so this is a lot like Mural and Miro, so many of you that may have used that. It's another great visual networking tool where you can show your work. It's very high resolution, and so now we're trying that out too. So again, it's numerous tools coming together to make these things happen.
So in terms of critique, for those who might be experiencing their learning this fall remotely, what are maybe some of the differences or that they can anticipate to experience in terms of critique? Because as we all know, at ArtCenter, critique is definitely part of the ArtCenter experience. And so how can students who are doing the remote option this fall, what can they plan to experience?
Well, it's so interesting because I love being in the classroom when I can. So I've been able to experience firsthand how faculty are conducting the critiques and how students are presenting their work. And I have to say, this particular format seems even more robust and more interesting than when we were in person, because there's a very controlled narrative now. So every student has a very specific voice, but we can all see each other. If there's 20 of us on a Zoom panel, we can all see, and we can all watch the presentation, hear the presentation, and chat and give comments. I think it's kind of opened up a much more collaborative way of a critique. It's much more inclusive because we're all there. And I think from what I hear from faculty, that actually the presentations, and I trust me, I've seen a couple of them this week and I'm just blown away. The quality of the presentations and the confidence and the content and the concepts have actually improved since we were all in the classroom together. So I think there is something to be said about this, adjusting to this particular kind of communication. I know for a lot of our students, this is a very natural platform to be on, is to be like this. It's harder for some of us who didn't grow up with this as our go-to communication form. However, I think our faculty are really enjoying it. The faculty, I keep hearing many of them saying how it gave them the chance to reinvent their curriculum, the things that they've been teaching for years. So there's just these really great, both drastic differences in how we're critiquing because of the format we're in, and there's these incremental improvements that are happening as well. So I think one great thing is we're blessed to have these digital tools, and I know many of our classes that are digital based are actually more effective and more efficient delivering in this online format. And we may not, some of those classes may not ever meet again in person, even when we do
because
convene.
it just makes more sense to do so remotely. How about, so we talked about, critique, what students can experience, in terms of projects, and we're in week 14, so we're ending the summer term, but maybe going back a little bit into the end of spring term as we wrap things up, and then, where we're at now today. What have you noticed in terms of maybe the types of projects and work that's being produced by our students in this remote learning environment that maybe just made sense, again, in this particular way, and particular projects that faculty came up with and to innovate and provide into the curriculum as assignments that, again, maybe previously we weren't necessarily thinking about a particular project in a certain way, but because of this remote learning environment, we've adapted. And what have been some of those projects that maybe have surprised you?
Well, we have a tradition of having many sponsored projects, and so I'll kind of stick on the technology end for a couple of examples. We had a footwear design project, sort of future of running with Under Armour, and that was in the spring, and the second half of it was all remote. It was outstanding how the students were able to define not just what a product experience could be in the future for a sportswear brand, a footwear brand that provides product for runners. What they came up with was a whole sense of community. So the project and the situation that we all fell in with having to, stay at home forced students to pivot in a way that was very unexpected, very appreciated by the brand. And it made Under Armour think about a sense of community of runners in very new ways. Obviously, the deliverables for the footwear was killer. They're product designers and industrial designers that participated, interaction designers that were in that project, and we even had a film student that documented some incredible emotional experiences. It was emotional, so it was a different look, and that would have never have happened if we wouldn't have had to pivot in that way. I think this summer we've had some really interesting experiments. We have an entertainment design class that is conducted completely in a virtual reality environment. So it's how do you do concept design inside of a virtual reality, inside of a game environment. And so that's really interesting because it's not going to be just about games anymore. It's going to be what does workflow look like? How do you make stuff in a real virtual environment? Our digital immersion lab has been doing some interesting work too, and will continue to do some things in the fall. I just heard that from Interaction Design that we're doing an interesting partnership with Caltech this fall that's looking at, again, what those immersive virtual environments look like. I know the platform Twitch is being used on a lot of the classwork that's being done. And so to be able to have, sort of knowledge partners like Caltech to really look at the future of what this kind of experience is going to look like, both on an educational platform, but in gaming and entertainment and work, it's fascinating to have those kinds of projects. I think on the some other examples that are other sides of the technology, not having access to do your own photography or your own filming. We have, Matthew Ralston's class, The Power of Pleasure, which typically it's a very much about creative directions. Students shoot their own content. Well, when things shut down, there was no way to do that. So cleverly, he asked students to use content that they could find online from libraries and things that they could acquire that was not copyrighted that they could use. And as it turned out, those particular projects actually were stronger in concept because the time wasn't spent on the technical side. It was about the storytelling. It was about the narrative and using imagery that was readily available and actually using that process to tell a powerful narrative in new ways. So again, an experiment and a force of doing something different comes out with a solution or a result that was far more creative than ever anticipated. And of course, the amazing Design Matters team that connects our educational departments with these projects. We worked with environmental design on a project called Stronger Apart, both last term and this term. And it's really looking at the emotional, social side of being separated. What are the environments that we can create, both virtually, physically? How do we access each other's lives in these new ways? How do we help people that are isolated? So those projects really tackled what COVID is doing to our world, and knowing that it's going to be a while before we are able to gather like we did, before the pandemic hit. So just really using, creativity and art and design in ways that we would have never have imagined unless this would have hit us, which is really this humanization that's going on, and the humanization that we're seeing being connected in this way. It's fascinating. We were also able to sort of see this term. We've had students that have produced PPE, Shield Makers Project, again, partnering with local makers. And I was just in a final yesterday. The project was looking at devices to help with COVID and the practices of life. So whether you're going to a dentist, whether you're going to the store, what are products that could help you feel safer and be safer? And so it's just some phenomenal innovations. And then the greatest thing that's happening in the classroom, the amount of guests that we're getting. Yesterday we had a doctor, we had 3 designers that do this kind of work for medical devices that were part of the critique, giving feedback. The experts that we're able to bring in from around the world, our alumni, our Hofmann Center for Typography and the Graphic Design Department put a whole series of lectures together. We had Paula Scher, we had Marianne Banshee's lecture, which was phenomenal. And now Marianne's teaching from Europe, teaching from a distance. There was a transportation design class that we have one of our alums that was transferred to France, who designs cars for Kelty. And he was able to teach again because of this online platform, but he's teaching from France.
I think that's the most amazing thing is that in terms of students that I've been interacting with, most of our newly incoming students, is that there's a certain innovation to the learning experience, but just the fact that we're able to bring in renowned industry practitioners into the digital remote learning environment that because of travel and distance often would have limited that. And so if anything, it's only enhancing that experience.
Well, even industry people that are so busy that can't necessarily drive to ArtCenter, drive to campus. So I'm a huge fangirl of Ruth Carter, and Ruth Carter is a costume designer. You might be familiar with her. Her latest film was Black Panther. She showed her work, that the sketches, and was able to walk through the process of how that costuming was done and how she collaborated and her workflow. And how that whole movie happened with the costume design being integral into the storytelling, and just how sophisticated and nuanced that work was. We had students from the film department, from entertainment design, that were able to hang out with Ruth Carter to hear those stories. So, it's really incredible to have this sort of accessibility to professionals that we just didn't have before.
Yeah. Well, be mindful of time, Karen, and we're about 25 minutes in. And so I do want to go back and see if there's any questions that are coming up before we wrap things up.
Goes by so fast.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. I already know as we were chatting, I did see a couple of questions come up about community hubs.
Oh,
That's
good. Thank you. I didn't get a chance to really get into that. I think we bypassed that.
Yeah, so
Um,
maybe if you want to just briefly mention, our
yeah.
plan, what our community hubs are, who has access to them, and I'll continue scrolling and see what else we have.
Yeah, you got it. And I'm glad that was the first question because I would have been really upset if I didn't cover this. We had this idea this last early in the summer was, what if we can't convene again in the fall? And what if we brought ArtCenter to the places that we know our students are? So we said, okay, we have a lot of international students that we know are in the regions in Beijing, Shanghai, Korea, Seoul specifically. So we said, let's pilot something. Let's try establishing what a hub might look like in those three cities, because we have amazing alumni that are so willing to help us out with providing access to their studios. So if, in that time in the fall, we have the ability for students and people to convene in those spaces safely, we definitely are able to provide access to studios, to maker spaces. We also are developing a seminar, and this is what's really cool is you all might know we have a satellite in Berlin. Obviously, none of us could go there. We have the incredible Rob Ball, Professor Rob Ball, who's been teaching in Berlin for the last decade. He really is great at multidiscipline. He can teach pretty much any kind of student from art and design backgrounds on collaborative projects, TDSs, etc. He's 6 hours away, so time zone wise, it's great because he's got now a seminar he's running with all entering students that are in those three locations, and that seminar will bring the value of ArtCenter and what it's like to have an ArtCenter experience. We'll have exercises around really thinking about who you are as a designer, really looking at the history of art and design, really engaging in conversation about what is the role of art and design. So it's very introspective. But he'll be doing that in every other week. That cohort will meet virtually. That's going to create a sense of community for those students that are in Beijing. So together they can get to know each other. And if they can convene safely, that's great. We're really excited that we'll be able to do that. Same thing in Shanghai, same thing in Seoul. Then we'll also set up for all students, continuing students, a hub seminar where you can, it's no homework, but it's a chance to see guest speakers, to network with industry folks and alumni, to connect back to your colleagues in Pasadena. So we're really excited to pilot this. We have about 150 students that are part of these hubs so far. So we're going to learn a lot from it. And ideally, we've got 4 domestic areas in the US that we want to do this again with in the spring. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to bring ArtCenter out of the campus.
Right. If there's any place that can do it, it's us at ArtCenter to innovate and rethink it. Just a couple questions that I did see come up that I think are pretty easy and I could take on possibly. People are asking to talk about orientation. We will have a session during the week of orientation in a couple of weeks, but just as a reminder, orientation for our new incoming students is September 8th through 11th. Karen, and correct me if I'm wrong, for those students who are planning to be with us in person and they're opting for the in-person learning this fall, they should plan to be within the Pasadena area no later than August 28th.
That's correct.
Right, about 14 weeks out.
14 days. Yeah.
14 days. I'm thinking terms.
No, well, ArtCenter, we're just used to the language of 14 weeks, not 14 days.
Yeah.
So yeah, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to remind everybody that next week, Cynthia Quinton from our environmental health and safety group, she'll get into some of the details. I have to say, we're very fortunate to have her. She is so connected to the city of Pasadena, to the LA County, to the state every day. And I want the community to know that from the executive level to the facilities, IT, department chairs, everybody from all necessary departments have been convening on a regular basis as things change and update. You guys know how fluid the situation is. And we know we're seeing colleges open and close. We don't have housing. We don't have fraternities. Right now, we're not hearing that there's big parties going on. And, we really want to, we're being as safe and mindful as we can and flexible. So again, one of the things we know we can do is we will accommodate whatever situation students are in. We will do the best we can to deliver the Art Center experience, whether you're here or somewhere else.
And that's a nice plug. Next week's session, I'll be with Cynthia Quinton, our Director of Environmental Health and Safety. And so if you have any questions for Cynthia regarding our opening and whatnot, I know we talked a little bit about last week, more from the facilities, campus planning, but Cynthia will talk to us more in depth about environmental health and safety in regards to opening. And so if you have questions for her, please email us, ehs@artcenter.edu, and we'll take your questions as they come in for next week's session. But again, want to be mindful of the time and wrap up here. I know maybe we didn't get to everyone's question, but you can still send those questions in, ehs@artcenter.edu, and we'll get to your questions next week with our guest next week, Cynthia Quinton, Director of Environmental Health and Safety. But right now I want to thank Karen Hofmann, our Provost, for walking us through and talking candidly about some of the things that we're doing. And really we're definitely in this together. I know it's something we keep on hearing, but it is really inspiring to be a part of innovative community like Art Center, and to know that it's not just one aspect of our community working on these things. It really is all of us coming together, thinking about how do we do these, whether it's for new incoming students, our returning, continuing students, our staff, faculty, really being mindful of all those moving parts. And so appreciate, Karen, I know you're busy as well, to be with us and to talk to our returning and new students.
Tim, one more thing before we leave. Community is such an important element to the Art Center experience. I want to remind everybody too, one of the things we're also doing is setting up Zoom rooms. So each department will have a Zoom room, like you have a homeroom. I know CSC has been facilitating the student clubs to have rooms. Being connected socially as a student is so important. And so we're going to do everything we can to deliver that. I also want to let everybody know, please do not hesitate to contact me as well if you have questions regarding the academic experience. I can certainly answer questions that you might have and also connect you with those that could provide answers. And please contact your department chairs specifically to curriculum and classes and the nuances of what's happening in each of those departments. So everyone's working really hard to deliver a really great fall term ahead. So thank you.
Right. And for any of our incoming or new students, if you still have any questions, you can email us in admissions@artcenter.edu. Again, if you're an incoming new student, there's still questions you have, we'd love to chat with you. Also just want to thank, I was noticing here, we had a lot of
Tim,
different people tuning in. Yeah.
I forgot something super, super important here because
Sure.
We've got graduation coming up Saturday.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is the second time we've delivered graduation online. It is incredibly exciting. We also, this week, our Career and Professional Development group has facilitated a series of industry networking events online. It is Grad Show. Second time we've delivered Grad Show online, and so you have a chance to see all of the student work. And so Tim, I don't know if you could post that as well on our site, but I would love for everybody to see the students that are graduating this summer. It will be released publicly tomorrow, so you can take a look at all of your friends' work. I'm sorry, one more thing too that I don't want to forget, because I know a lot of students were asking about this. Hey, what about the student gallery? We can't access Hillside. So just so y'all know, we are working on this fall to establish an online student gallery. We already have a gallery online that you could look at that our marketing and communications department puts together on artcenter.edu. But we're going to put together a very specific student gallery that shows terms 1 through 7, all different departments, undergraduate and graduate. So those are a couple things I wanted to make sure I plugged as part of this overall Art Center experience.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I was just thinking, we had some of our friends from different departments who were tuning in, and so when questions were coming in, they were also answering some of those relevant questions pertaining to their department. So thank you for the various departments that I noticed tuning in. But again, thank you, Karen, for joining us.
Welcome.
And we'll be with you all next week again to talk to Cynthia Quinton, our Director of Environmental Health and Safety. email us ehs@artcenter.edu, and we'll take your questions. Thanks, everyone. Be safe. Stay well. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.